Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Welcome back, everybody. We're working through the Madhya Leela of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita written by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. We have devotees joining here at Govardhan Hill, Bhaktivedanta Ashram, ISKCON, from places all over the world, and we have people tuning in. From who's tuning in? Amrita Sagar. From which places?
I can't see that.
You can't see it on there? Okay. Well, whoever you are tuning in, thank you very much. We're taking up at Madhya Leela chapter 4, text number 134. We've been hearing about Srila Mādhavendra Purī. Everyone ready?
Yes, yes.
Outside People's Party? They're really ready. The priest continued, "Would the sannyasi whose name is Mādhavendra Purī please come and take this pot of sweet rice and enjoy the prasadam with great happiness? You are the most fortunate person within these three worlds." Purport. Here is an example of a personal benediction by Krishna's immoral activity. By Gopinath stealing for his devotee, the devotee becomes the most fortunate person within the three worlds. Thus, even the Lord's criminal activities make his devotee the most fortunate person. How can a mundane rascal understand the pastimes of Krishna and judge whether he is moral or immoral? Since Krishna is the absolute truth, there are no mundane distinctions such as moral and immoral. Whatever he does is good. This is the real meaning of God is good. He is good in all circumstances because he is transcendental, outside the jurisdiction of this material world. Therefore, Krishna can be understood only by those who are already living in the spiritual world. This is corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sakunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service unfailing in all circumstances at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. One who is engaged in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord is already situated in the spiritual world. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. In all circumstances, his activities and dealings with Krishna are transcendental and thus not understandable by mundane moralists. It is therefore better not to discuss such activities among mundane people. It is better to give them the Hare Krishna mantra so that they will be gradually purified and then come to understand the transcendental activities of Krishna. Hearing this invitation, Mādhavendra Purī came out and identified himself. The priest then delivered the pot of sweet rice and offered his obeisances, falling flat before him. A brahmana is not supposed to offer his obeisances by falling flat before anyone because a brahmana is considered to be in the highest caste. However, when a brahmana sees a devotee, he offers his dandavats. This brahmana priest did not ask Mādhavendra Purī whether he was a brahmana, but when he saw that Mādhavendra Purī was such a bona fide devotee that Krishna would even steal for him, he immediately understood the position of the saint. As stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Shudra Kene Nai Jai Krishna Tattva Veta She Guru Hai. That's from CC Madhya 8.128. Had the Brahmana priest been an ordinary Brahmana, Gopinath would not have talked with him in a dream. Since the deity spoke to both Mādhavendra Purī and the Brahmana priest in dreams, practically speaking, they were on the same platform. However, because Mādhavendra Purī was a senior sannyasi Vaishnav, a Paramahamsa, the priest immediately fell flat before him and offered obeisances. Text 136. When the story about the pot of sweet rice was explained to him in detail, Sri Mādhavendra Purī at once became absorbed in ecstatic love of Krishna. Upon seeing the ecstatic loving symptoms manifest in Srila Mādhavendra Purī, the priest was struck with wonder. He could understand why Krishna had become so much obliged to him, and he saw that Krishna's action was befitting. Purport: a devotee can bring Krishna perfectly under his control. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.3. Ajita jitopyasi tais trilokya. Krishna is never conquered by anyone, but a devotee can conquer him through devotional service. As stated in the Brahma Samhita 5.33, Vedeshu dulabam adulabam atma bhaktau. One cannot understand Krishna simply by reading Vedic literature. Although all Vedic literature is meant for understanding Krishna, one cannot understand Krishna without being a lover of Krishna. Therefore, along with the reading of Vedic literature, swadhyaya, one must engage in devotional worship of the deity, archana vidhi. Together, these will enhance the devotee's transcendental understanding of devotional service. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karai Udvai. Madhya 22.107. Love of Godhead is dormant within everyone's heart, and if one simply follows the standard process of devotional service, it is awakened. But foolish mundane people who simply read about Krishna mistakenly think that he is immoral or criminal. The priest offered his obeisances to Mādhavendra Purī and returned to the temple. Then in ecstasy, Mādhavendra Purī ate the sweet rice offered to him by Krishna. After this, Mādhavendra Purī washed the pot and broke it into pieces. He then bound all the pieces in his outer cloth and kept them nicely. Each day, Mādhavendra Purī would eat one piece of that earthen pot, and after eating it, he would immediately be overwhelmed with ecstasy. These are wonderful stories. Having broken the pot and bound the pieces in his cloth, Mādhavendra Purī began to think, the Lord has given me a pot of sweet rice, and when the people hear of this, tomorrow morning there will be great crowds. Thinking this, Sri Mādhavendra Purī offered his obeisances to Gopinath on the spot and left Ramuna before morning. Walking and walking, Mādhavendra Purī finally reached Jagannath Puri, which is also known as Nilachala. There he saw Lord Jagannath and was overwhelmed with loving ecstasy. When Mādhavendra Purī was overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead, he sometimes stood up and sometimes fell to the ground. Sometimes he laughed, danced and sang. In this way he enjoyed transcendental bliss by seeing the Jagannath deity. When Mādhavendra Purī came to Jagannath Puri, people were aware of his transcendental reputation. Therefore crowds of people came and offered him all sorts of respect and devotion. Even though one may not like it, reputation, as ordained by providence, comes to him. Indeed, one's transcendental reputation is known throughout the entire world. Being afraid of his reputation, pratishtha, Mādhavendra Purī fled from Ramuna. But the reputation brought by love of Godhead is so sublime that it goes along with the devotee, as if following him. Purport: almost all the conditioned souls within the material world are envious. Jealous people generally turn against one who automatically attains some reputation. This is natural for jealous people. Consequently, when a devotee is fit to receive worldly reputation, he is envied by many people. This is quite natural. When a person out of humility does not desire fame, people generally think him quite humble and consequently give him all kinds of fame. Actually, a Vaishnava does not hanker after fame or a great reputation. Mādhavendra Purī, the king of Vaishnavas, bore his reputation, but he wanted to keep himself outside of the vision of the general populace. He wanted to cover his real identity as a great devotee of the Lord. But when people saw him overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead, they naturally gave credit to him. Actually, a first-class reputation is due Mādhavendra Purī because he was a most confidential devotee of the Lord. Sometimes a sahaja presents himself as being void of desires for reputation, pratishta, in order to become famous as a humble man. Such people cannot actually attain the platform of celebrated Vaishnavas. Mādhavendra Purī wanted to leave Jagannath Puri because the people were honoring him as a great devotee. However, this threatened to hinder his collecting sandalwood for the Gopal deity. Sri Mādhavendra Purī told all the servants of Lord Jagannath and all the great devotees there the story of the appearance of Sri Gopal. When all the devotees at Jagannath Puri heard that the Gopal deity wanted sandalwood, in great pleasure they all endeavored to collect it. Those who were acquainted with the government officers met with them and begged for camphor and sandalwood, which they collected. Purport: it appears that Balayaja Chandana, sandalwood, and camphor were used for the Jagannath deity. The camphor was used in his aratik, and the sandalwood was used to smear his body. Both these items were under government control. Therefore, the devotees had to meet with the government officials. Informing them of all the details, they attained permission to take the sandalwood and camphor outside Jagannath Puri. One brahmana and one servant were given to Mādhavendra Purī just to carry the sandalwood. He was also given the necessary traveling expenses. So it appears here that he collected it in Jagannath Puri. Yeah? To get past the toll collectors along the way, Mādhavendra Purī was supplied with the necessary release papers from government officers. The papers were placed in his hand. In this way, Mādhavendra Purī started for Vrindavan with the burden of sandalwood, and after some days he again reached the village of Remuna and the Gopinath temple there. When Mādhavendra Purī reached the temple of Gopinath, he offered his respectful obeisances many times at the lotus feet of the Lord. In the ecstasy of love, he began to dance and sing without cessation. When the priest of Gopinath saw Mādhavendra Purī again, he offered all respects to him, and giving him the sweet rice prasadam, made him eat. Mādhavendra Purī took rest that night in the temple, but toward the end of night he had another dream. Mādhavendra Purī dreamed that Gopal came before him and said, "O Mādhavendra Purī, I have already received all the sandalwood and camphor. Now just grind all the sandalwood together with the camphor, and then smear the pulp on the body of Gopinath daily until it is finished. There is no difference between my body and Gopinath's body. They are one and the same. Therefore, if you smear the sandalwood pulp on the body of Gopinath, you will naturally also smear it on my body. Thus, the temperature of my body will be reduced." Purport: Gopal was situated in Vrindavan, which was far from Remuna. In those days, one had to pass through provinces governed by the Muslims, who sometimes hindered travelers. Considering the trouble of his devotee, Lord Gopal, the greatest well-wisher of his devotees, ordered Mādhavendra Purī to smear the sandalwood pulp on the body of Gopinath, which was non-different from the body of Gopal. In this way, the Lord relieved Mādhavendra Purī from trouble and inconvenience. You should not hesitate to act according to my order. Believing in me, just do what is needed. After giving these instructions, Gopal disappeared, and Srila Mādhavendra Purī awoke. He immediately called for all the servants of Gopinath, and they came before him. Mādhavendra Purī said, "Smear the body of Gopinath with this camphor and sandalwood I have brought for Gopal in Vrindavan. Do this regularly every day. If the sandalwood pulp is smeared over the body of Gopinath, then Gopal will be cooled. After all, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely independent. His order is all-powerful." The servants of Gopinath became very pleased to hear that the summer that in the summer all the sandalwood pulp would be used to anoint the body of Gopinath. Mādhavendra Purī said, "These two assistants will regularly grind the sandalwood, and you should also get 2 other people to help. I shall pay their salaries." In this way, Gopinathji was supplied ground sandalwood pulp daily. The servants of Gopinath were very pleased with this. See, you can pay salaries. If anybody wondered. In this way, Gopinathji was supplied ground sandalwood pulp daily. The servants of Gopinath were very pleased with this. In this way, the sandalwood pulp was smeared over the body of Gopinath until the whole stock was finished. Mādhavendra Purī stayed there until that time. At the end of summer, Mādhavendra Purī returned to Jagannath Puri, where he remained with great pleasure during the whole period of Chaturmasya. Purport: the Chaturmasya period begins in the month of Ashata, June-July, from the day of Ekadashi, called Shayana Ekadashi, in the fortnight of the waxing moon. The period ends in the month of Kartik, October-November, on the Ekadashi day known as Uttana Ekadashi, in the fortnight of the waxing moon. This 4-month period is known as Chaturmasya. Some Vaishnavas also observe it from the full moon day of Ashada until the full moon day of Kartik. This is also a period of 4 months. This period, calculated by the lunar months, is called Chaturmasya, but others also observe Chaturmasya according to the solar month from Shravan to Kartik. The whole period, either lunar or solar, takes place during the rainy season. Chaturmasya should be observed by all sections of the population. It does not matter whether one is a grahastha or a sannyasi. The observance is obligatory for all ashramas. The real purpose behind the... Well, we got that one. A non-vegetarian diet means fish and meat. Similarly, masura dal and urd dal are also considered non-vegetarian. I felt like that because they had some attachment. But I like this whole... Although Mādhavendra Purī did not have a farthing with him, he was not afraid to pass by the toll officers. His only enjoyment was in carrying the load of sandalwood to Vrindavan for Gopal. I mean, you could say because his only enjoyment was in carrying the load. He had no vested interest in the world, so nobody had any control over him. This is the natural result of intense love of Godhead. The devotee does not consider personal inconveniences or impediments. In all circumstances, he wants to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: it is natural for those who have developed intense love for Krishna not to care for personal inconvenience and impediments. Such devotees are simply determined to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his representative, the spiritual master. In all circumstances, even amidst the greatest dangers, they undeviatingly carry on with the greatest determination. This definitely proves the intense love of the servitor. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8, tate nukampāṁ su-samīkṣamāṇo, those who seriously desire to get free from the clutches of material existence, who have developed intense love for Krishna, are worthy candidates for going back home, back to Godhead. An intense lover of Krishna does not care for any number of material discomforts, scarcity, impediments, or unhappiness. It is said that when one sees apparent unhappiness or distress in a perfect Vaishnava, it is not at all unhappiness for him, rather it is transcendental bliss. In the Shikshashtaka, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also instructed, Ashlishyava padaratam vinashtumam. The intense lover of Krishna is never deviated from his service, despite all difficulties and impediments brought before him. Okay, we'll take some reflections or questions. Observations. Okay, we have some from the Outside People's Party. Please share the mic.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question about what lesson we should glean from seemingly Gopal saying you only have to go halfway, when he said that, because of the Muslims it would create inconveniences. I was thinking of this, is this a direct manifestation of the verse 4:11 in Bhagavad Gita, yathā, that as they surrender unto me, I record them accordingly? And then Mādhavendra Purī went all the way to get the sandalwood paste, and then he didn't have to go all the way back. And I feel often that I'm just thinking about this, how often the mind tends to protest and say, oh, I don't want to do this, it's going to cause too much inconveniences. But in the end, that Krishna does half the work for us. And I can think of many instances in my life for this being similar, where I surrender, I do the service, and then seemingly I'm alleviated from having to even finish it, or obstacles are cleared in that respect. So is this a lesson that we can glean from this pastime?
Apparently so, as you've just done it. And Madhavendra Purī had no hesitation to go all the way back, just to be noted. Whatever trouble he was taking, he took it as a burden of love, of course. But it did mention there that Gopal wanted to spare his devotee any extra inconvenience, so he had him offer the sandalwood pork locally. But your observation about yathā prapadyante, that as one surrenders unto me, I reward them accordingly, is also apt and important. It's important that we notice Krishna's reciprocation and how kind he is. That's the quintessential attitude of devotee, as expressed in tate nukampāṁ su-samīkṣamāṇo bhuñjāna evātma-kṛtaṁ vipākam hṛd-vāg-vapurbhir vidadhan namaste jīveta yom mukti-pade dāya-bhāk. That is that the devotee sees that whatever comes is Krishna's mercy. He's doing it purposefully in order to benedict me more and bring me closer to him. So it's really nice observation. Thank you. Okay, there was a couple more from the Inside People's Party.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So few realizations or thoughts. So one, the priest did not glorify himself with anyone, even though he got the same dream, or he got the dream of having Krishna in his dream, and he didn't say that, oh, I got this dream and this is what I heard. Rather than he just directly glorified Mādhavendra Purī. So he didn't even mention it, and purport also says that because he's senior, so that's why he did that. But a lot of times we try to glorify ourselves, or okay, I mean this is a big deal having Krishna.
I know such and such.
I know such and such, and yeah. So that was one realization. And then second was that Mādhavendra Purī left Ramuna not having any, so that he does not get any fame. Whereas when he reached Jagannath Puri, he himself told the story of Gopal. And I thought that was interesting because this was for the service of Krishna, that he had to mention this story of Gopal and somewhat get that fame because he wanted sandalwood and camphor, which was for the service of Krishna. So for service of Krishna, he took that fame, even though we know that he did not want the fame in the first place. So that was interesting. And then the third thing, which is the last line we just read, the intense lover of Krishna is never deviated from his service, despite all difficulties and impediments. And I was thinking what you mentioned yesterday, the two things that shows advancement is the steadiness of service.
Yeah.
I think that steadiness of service comes when, even though impediments come, but we avoid them or deal with them and still continue to do our service.
Nice observations. I just add to the second one about that lesson is also given in the pastime where Lord Chaitanya fell asleep in the doorway, and Govinda couldn't get in to give Mahaprabhu his normal massage. But then, after trying to move Mahaprabhu, who said, "I'm too tired," and he crossed over his transcendental body, and then afterwards, when Mahaprabhu woke up, said, "Why are you still here? Why didn't you go take prasadam?" He said, I didn't want to step over you. And Mahaprabhu said, "Well, how'd you get in?" And Govinda didn't answer audibly. He just, in his mind, he said, "Well, to do my service, I don't mind making an offense. But for my own sense gratification, I won't cross over." It's an important point you made. Thanks for observing that. Who is next? Akshobhya-tirtha.
Hare Krishna. This word Paramhamsa was kind of throughout the thread of Mādhavendra Puri's qualities. There was one sentence which said, "No vested interest in the world." A Paramhamsa is someone who has no vested interest in the world. Hence, Maya, I think interpreted, had no control over him. However, we all aspire to be Paramhamsas. At the same time, the world throws curveballs at you, because there's also the dharma we have to follow to do what we have to. And there are situations where we feel that we are recipients of himsa, violence, in thoughts, gestures, deeds of other people. And we want to be humble. We accept that what they've done is himsa. However, we do not want to react, because that pain that we get, we want to find our own purpose and progress in our spiritual journey. But how does a Paramhamsa train himself to rise above this, the pain that the world can give?
Well, tate nukampāṁ su-samīkṣamāṇo, the verse is describing that state of mind of the person who takes whatever comes as the compassion of the Lord upon him. And as far as training goes, I talked to Peter Burwash. He was a successful businessman. I knew him pretty well. We used to share a cab back to Pittsburgh Airport from New Vrindavan during our annual festival that we were both at. And he had some association with Prabhupada. He was in Hawaii. He's from Hawaii. And he had been one of the life members in America. Life membership was pretty rare in America. It's mostly an Indian thing. But he wasn't really a sadhaka enough to... So he opted for a life membership. So he paid his money, and then the money he paid to the devotee in the temple, the devotee absconded, took his money, and he was really upset, he said. And so upset he went to Prabhupada, who happened to be there at the time, and he told him of his concerns. Concerns sounds like a euphemism. But Prabhupada said, and this became Peter Burwash's mantra throughout his life, he said, don't be angry with the instrument of your karma. And he said he lived with that as a mantra throughout his life, because Prabhupada had told him that. So I heard Prabhupada this morning speaking about different levels of understanding, and he said the devotees, by performing devotional service, they rise to receive the fruits of what other kinds of yogis do. They get the fruit of karma yoga, because Krishna supplies them everything. They get the fruit of jnana yoga, because Krishna gives them all intelligence. He said that jnanis might be surprised when they talk to bhakti yogis, because the bhakti yogis have clear knowledge, because it comes Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Yashavairagyam Jnanam Chayarahaitukam. And so nothing extra is not really a technique, except for following Krishna's instructions in the Gita to tolerate certain things, and the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam to observe that whatever is coming is Krishna's mercy, and some point one realizes that. Like Prabhupada went through tribulations, and he, at one point when he was in, I forget what town he was in, but he got hit by a cow with the horns, and he was injured. Prabhupada had just taken sannyas. Where? In Delhi. And Prabhupada, in describing that, when he had been struck and hit the ground, and he could tell it was serious, he said, I was thinking, Krishna, what is this? So there's obviously, and then all the other ways that he was tested. Jhansi, I think, was one of the heaviest things that could have ever happened. Prabhupada's a pure devotee, and he's trying to help the world and trying to help India by starting a transcendental operation there in Jhansi, and they gave him the land, and then they took it back from him because the mayor or the governor's wife wanted it for some women's club. And what an insult, and how demeaning that must feel, like nobody cares. Prabhupada tolerated that. And there's a long list. And so he gave us, like, how does one rise to the occasion? Is by, in all circumstances, when reversals come, and not just reversals, when there's a windfall, it's the other side of it. One doesn't become jubilant because it just came of its own accord, but that's, Krishna gave me this to use in his service, or when he's seemingly abused by the material nature, he thinks this is Krishna's mercy on me to make me see something and be more humble. So that kind of practice, tolerance throughout life. And then Prabhupada was noting, and this is sort of the payoff point, where he was saying, in retrospect, he was saying, see, all these things led to this. And who knew that we'd all be here together, that Krishna would direct me to come to New York City, and all these things would culminate in something he couldn't have imagined previously. So you kind of have to live your life by the principle, and the practice is to see it as Krishna's mercy and ask, what's the lesson? That's part of the practical part of it, nukampāṁ, is to ask what the lesson is, which is really hard to do because the natural default is just immediately feel victimized and to want to lash out. Okay, any other points? Let's go on. Oh, there's one back there, all the way in the back. Who is it?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's me, Mahendra.
Mahendra Purī.
If I can continue a little bit on that point, I appreciated so much Prabhupada's phrase, an intense lover of Krishna, repeated it twice. And that's one of the symptoms that is never deviated, such a lover of Krishna. Never deviated from service despite all difficulties and impediments. So usually we think, and the examples we've heard so far are impediments and difficulties from outside. What about those from within, like all anarthas and offenses? And sometimes they could be more discouraging or disheartening than outside difficulties. How to deal with them so that we are not deviated or not feel unhappy because of their presence.
My experience is that you have to have well-wishing devotee friends. Because when you have well-wishing devotee friends, you can get encouragement. It's hard for us to see ourselves as we are, and there is a tendency, psychological tendency, to denigrate oneself and to think I'm no good. So if you have well-wishing devotee friends who can remind you of how fortunate you are, and also point out that what you're doing is rare, to have attained the human form of life in the first place, and what to speak of being engaged in devotional service, and all other means of encouragement, then one can live to fight another day. And I notice that in any discipline you have to have really good coaching. People who rise to a higher level in academics, they have people who are really good at coaching in athletics, and in devotional service you have to have, that's what Shiksha Gurus are. You get a bunch of coaches, and then you have to find ways to buoy yourself despite the fact that there's internal struggle, and outwardly, as Prabhupada mentioned so aptly, as soon as you do something that's noteworthy, then other people are going to horn in and say, that was nothing, and besides that, you don't know the half of how this person is. And then a lot of misery comes from that also, and disturbance of the mind. And so it's helpful to have somebody that you can trust. That's guya makyati pritchati. Rupa Goswami mentions it early on, that you have to have people you can reveal your mind to. Otherwise, you can develop a sense of anxiety. And it can really be relieved if you have satam prasangam, association with people who are truthful and helpful and non-envious. So get yourself a bunch of non-envious, well-wishing friends and make sure you have them on speed dial. Which I know you already do, and you're one of the ones who encourage many other people. I'm just saying it for normal people, not for you. Mahendra Prabhu. Okay, let's read a few more verses. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. We're at 187, if I'm not incorrect. Yes? Thank you. Sri Gopāla wanted to show how intensely Mādhavendra Purī loved Krishna, therefore he asked him to go to Nilachala to fetch sandalwood and camphor. There you go. With great trouble and after much labor, Mādhavendra Purī brought the load of sandalwood to Ramuna. However, he was still very pleased. He discounted all the difficulties. To test the intense love of Mādhavendra Purī, Gopāla, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ordered him to bring sandalwood from Nilachala. And when Mādhavendra Purī passed this examination, the Lord became very merciful to him. Such behavior exhibited in loving service between the devotee and the devotee's lovable object, Sri Krishna, is transcendental. It is not possible for a common man to understand. Common men do not even have the capacity. After saying this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read the famous verse of Mādhavendra Purī. That verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. Continuous rubbing increases the aroma of Malaya sandalwood. Similarly, consideration of this verse increases one's understanding of its importance. As the Kaustubha Mani is considered the most precious of valuable stones, this verse is similarly considered the best of poems dealing with the mellows of devotional service. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself, and by her mercy only was it manifest in the words of Mādhavendra Purī. Only Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tasted the poetry of this verse. No fourth man is capable of understanding it. Purport: this indicates that only Srimati Radharani, Mādhavendra Purī, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are capable of understanding the purport of this verse. Mādhavendra Purī recited this verse again and again at the end of his material existence. Thus, uttering this verse, he attained the ultimate goal of life. Ai dina dayadra natehe mathura nath kadava lokshase hṛdayam twad alokakaratam dāyita ramyati kim karom yaham. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? The uncontaminated devotees who strictly depend on the Vedanta philosophy are divided into 4 sampradayas, or transcendental parties. Out of the 4 sampradayas, the Sri Madhvacharya Sampradaya was accepted by Mādhavendra Purī. Thus he took sannyas according to parampara, the disciplic succession. Beginning from Madhvacharya down to the spiritual master of Mādhavendra Purī, the acharya named Lakshmipati, there was no realization of devotional service and conjugal love. Sri Mādhavendra Purī introduced the conception of conjugal love for the first time in the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. And this conclusion of the Madhva Sampradaya was revealed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he toured southern India and met the Tattvavadis, who supposedly belonged to the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. When Sri Krishna left Vrindavan and accepted the kingdom of Mathura, Srimati Radharani, out of ecstatic feelings of separation, expressed how Krishna can be loved in separation. Thus, devotional service in separation is central to this verse. Worship in separation is considered by the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya to be the topmost level of devotional service. According to this conception, the devotee thinks of himself as very poor and neglected by the Lord. Thus he addresses the Lord as Dina Dayadranath, as did Mādhavendra Purī. Such an ecstatic feeling is the highest form of devotional service. Because Krishna had gone to Mathura, Srimati Radharani was very much affected, and she expressed herself thus: My dear Lord, because of your separation, my mind has become overly agitated. Now tell me, what can I do? I am very poor, and you are very merciful. So kindly have compassion upon me, and let me know when I shall see you. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always expressing the ecstatic emotions of Srimati Radharani that she exhibited when she saw Uddhava at Vrindavan. Similar feelings experienced by Mādhavendra Purī are expressed in this verse. Therefore, Vaishnavas in the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya say that the ecstatic feelings experienced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his appearance came from Sri Mādhavendra Purī through Ishvara Puri. All the devotees in the line of the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya accept these principles of devotional service. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited this verse, he immediately fell to the ground unconscious. He was overwhelmed and had no control over himself. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell to the ground in ecstatic love, Lord Nityananda quickly took him on his lap. Crying, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then got up again. Exhibiting ecstatic emotions, the Lord began to run here and there, making resounding noises. Sometimes he laughed, and sometimes he cried, and sometimes he danced and sang. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not recite the whole verse. He simply said, Ayedina, repeatedly. Thus he could not speak, and profuse tears were in his eyes. Trembling, perspiration, jubilant tears, shock, fading of the bodily luster, disappointment, moroseness, loss of memory, pride, joy, and humility were all visible in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body. Purport: in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Jadya is explained as the loss of memory brought about by severe shock due to separation from the beloved. In that state of mind, one loses all concern for loss and gain. hearing and seeing, as well as all other considerations. This marks the preliminary appearance of illusion. This verse uncovered the door of ecstatic love, and when it was exhibited, all the servants of Gopinath saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance in ecstasy. When many people crowded around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he regained his external senses. In the meantime, the offering to the deity had been finished, and there was a resounding artik performance. When the deities were laid down to rest, the priest came out of the temple and offered all 12 pots of sweet rice to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When all the pots of sweet rice, remnants left by Gopinath, were placed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very pleased. In order to feed the devotees, he accepted 5 of them. The 7 remaining pots were pushed forward and delivered to the priest. Then the 5 pots of sweet rice the Lord had accepted were distributed among the 5 devotees, and they ate the prasadam. Being identical with the Gopinath deity, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already tasted and eaten the pots of sweet rice. He had just to manifest devotional service. He again ate the pots of sweet rice as a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night at the temple engaged in congregational chanting. In the morning, after seeing the Mangal Artik performance, he departed. It's like he's playing both sides. Like double-fisted enjoyment. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally tasted with his own mouth the transcendental qualities of Gopalaji, Gopinath, and Sri Mādhavendra Purī. Thus, I have described both the transcendental glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's affection for his devotees and the highest limit of ecstatic love of God. One who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of Godhead at the lotus feet of Krishna. Shiv Rup Raghunath Pade Jar Ash Chaitanya Chartamrita Kahe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, 4th chapter, describing Sri Mādhavendra Puri's devotional service. Bravo! Sadhu, sadhu! Very good, very good. And that brings us to our break, and we'll be back here at 12 minutes after 5. 12 and a half minutes after 5. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande Haribol.